Hi, I'm Sam Price, the Crypto Lifer. Today I'm going to give you a macro technical analysis for the broader markets. We're going to look at the Dow Jones. We're going to look at the S&P future. We're going to look at gold, the DXY, and more. And honestly, it looks like we may be in for some type of massive pullback here in the M2 money supply. So Bitcoin, a beautiful head and shoulder, very likely to take a big dump here down to the downside. And honestly, that has a gap of the VRVP. It even says $67,000 is looming. We could go to $76,000. That's your macro look for Bitcoin. Your hope is that somehow, some way we get a bounce here off of this tough channel. Some way, somehow the smaller time frames get above the 200 MA. And, the one hope is that this bullish divergence on the 1 hour time frame holds us. I did look at the RSI, and if you look at the 1 hour, see how low we got here? We went all the way. I'm going to double click and show you something here on the RSI for Bitcoin. But if I put a line at the lowest points the RSI has ever gotten, and really that's the lowest I've seen in a long time. That was October 1st, right? A couple times on the dip in the bearish markets when we were really like digging out of the crates there. And so whenever we get those lows, that tends to be a bounce for Bitcoin, and a pretty big one. And when you look here, that's the lowest I've seen the RSI almost ever get. And Bitcoin came really close to that when we recently had the dip. What that tells me is there's a chance that this is like, a perfect buy opportunity, and that Bitcoin actually somehow gets a bounce. Again, it's weak because it's only the 1 hour. It's not the strongest, but it is something to take into account for. I did long last night. I had to get out of the trade with a stop loss that I moved into profit, but we'll see. So that's one thing on the radar. And again, I usually do the macro, but I had to show you the 1 hour just to that's the one like glimmer of hope I have for Bitcoin, and the fact that we could possibly bounce off of what looks to me like some type of, double bottom here, but the candles really still made a lower low right there technically. And you could say there's a liquidity bounce, and okay, it's nice. And there is some support at about 92,000, but it's looking bleaker and bleaker that we're going to break through that support. And even when I bring this down, it looks more like a descending triangle if I were to get really, technical with it. And that also gives me a measured move of the base to the downside. Another thing, I've been looking at the weekly, and the weekly comes back down to the 21-day moving average. That's just likely when you get these massive dumps. You've started to already make the falling wedge, which suggests that you continue. And so the bullish sign is that, okay, you flag out. We do get the DXY to pump. The Dow does take that dump. We do get a drain in money supply. But eventually it shows a weakness in the banking sector. Something happens that propels Bitcoin, right? They have to put the money printer back on to save grace because things just look insane. And inflation roars back. It doesn't matter. And Bitcoin starts to just rip. And so it says, but it does suggest that there's going to be this 2 to 4, maybe even 6 weeks of some pain here for BTC. Another big thing that you cannot avoid to look at, like you can't look at this. And this is breaking since the last week because we didn't make this right shoulder up until about 4 days ago. But you have to look at this, and you cannot deny that there's not a shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder here that likely wants to break you down. And the measured move there is the neck line to the head. And if you swing that, it says you're going somewhere down to 74,000, and you would touch the 200 MA on the daily. Everyone says, is the bear market? Is this a bear market, Sam? Is the bull market over? And I say with confidence that no, because we're in a macro uptrend. And this is what I said today on stream. I said, you got your low, your high, your higher low, your higher high, your higher low, your higher high. I would have to see Bitcoin close a weekly really below 55,000. If I see a weekly close a candle below 55,000, I'd begin to believe that we're going to come back up, make a lower high around 67, 70K, and that may be a wrap for this bull run. But until I see that, no, and until we break 75,000, I'd still say that we're in a bull run. And so, yes, for the people that are asking, I still see that we're, even if we get this pullback, but I do see a pullback coming for Bitcoin. Pull your fib here. And there's just too much coincidence and confluence with the $80,000 level. Now, could we get a bounce? There's a tiny chance that we bounce. I'm actually in a Hail Mary long right now, just, looking to see if we could get the move. And I'm watching the 1 hour time frame. And what I'm watching is, see, we just made this low, and there's a really strong bullish div here on the 15. And we want to see if this flag can take us out. If this flag can, for some reason, and I know this is the 1 minute, it'll probably be over by the time you watch this, but go back and track this. But if this flag breaks out and we get back above 96,000 resistance, there's a chance, there's some glimmer of hope that we could get back into the good graces of the bulls here and continue. And the bullish divergence on the 1 hour really is the one thing that's keeping me hopeful that there is a chance that Bitcoin can bounce. I mean, this is one of the strongest divergences I've seen in a long time. So that's how I look at it for Bitcoin. I have no idea where it's going to go. I know nothing but the fact of my own ignorance. Right now, we are more bearish than bullish. The key levels Bitcoin has to get back above, in my humble opinion, is 99,000. At the very beginning, 98.5. Like, you got to get back above 98.5. And then on your smaller time frames, even before all that, look, you can see a major resistance there at 95.3 and then 96,000. So 95.3, 96,000. Then, of course, that weekly 97.2. But 98.5 is a strong area. You get above 98.5, you can get back to 100K again. Things can start to work. So if you look at Bookmap, we got all the liquidity to the downside. It suggests that we go lower. I want to, jump right in quickly and take a look at the total market cap of all of cryptocurrency and see where we stand. So total will look similar to Bitcoin. It will have a very similar outlook. The thing about total is it just looks a little more optimistically lateral. You see? Like there's a chance that this could end up becoming some type of sideways flag, right? Again, it could end up being a descending triangle, but it looks a little more or less like a falling wedge and looks more like we could get some type of bounce here. So there's a little more leeway here on the total market cap. And people like to get into altcoins. There's not much else out there in the world that gives you an opportunity. If you're an institution, hedge fund, big person, you want to make some gains. Altcoins, right? You're getting more oversold than Bitcoin too. So the total market cap's a little ahead of Bitcoin, telling me that altcoins could kind of level off the playing field. At the same time, you're getting a lower high. That's a lower low. I'd expect possibly a lower high. So even if we get a bounce, there's a chance that it just makes this look a shoulder, a head or right shoulder here, and we dump too. So I'm still seeing signs of bearishness. It doesn't look amazing. But, we are oversold on the daily. The 4 hour doesn't look too good either, right? It looks like it'd have to make a double bottom here and break on out. So if I had to call it, I would say that, yeah, we also pull back on the total market cap. But I'd be looking for this bearish retest first. I don't want to be overly bearish. I want to be in the middle, but at the same time, look, your 4 hours getting overbought and you didn't make a higher high. So whenever you have a lower high with an overbought stochastic, it is likely. We are hugging 3.2 trillion. We're still doing well there. And you can say, hey, we got a double bottom cooking. So Bitcoin's hugging support. If it loses support, I see the whole market cap is hugging support at 3.1 trillion. If it loses that, I see us testing 3 trillion. If it loses 3 trillion, 2.8. But I still think, it shows there's a lot of demand here that people were willing to get into. And you can see there's a big chunk of liquidity and we could bounce off that. That's about 75, 80K for Bitcoin. So even if we get a pullback, I still see a demand zone that could prop us back up, turn into an inverted head and shoulder and put us right back into the bull run. And I'm not willing to tell you, the bull market is still on here. All right. We're just getting a pretty nasty pullback. Let's take a look at the total market cap in all of the altcoins. Similar story here. You got this falling wedge here. You got this wedge. And it looks like, you may come down a little lower and channel into a flag. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for these flags to just do their thing and break on out. That looks almost, you can almost get an inverted head and shoulder out of that idea too on the total market cap. So the altcoins don't look as bad as Bitcoin, which is somewhat of a good sign that there could be some hope here on the bigger idea. And if you look at the daily is making somewhat of a flag. And so the altcoins don't look terribly bad. Looks like they could go sideways for 2 to 3 weeks, and then eventually get a bigger move to the upside. Let's take a look at the whole idea. But yeah, and then we would get a blast. And it says that altcoins would go on their next leg run up towards the end of January. But it says it could be pretty fast. Like they pump until, it's just 1 month, like the end of January to March. Now I want to look at the DXY. The DXY had two things going. It was in a rising wedge, and the daily Stokes looked like they had legs. Now, a lot of times these fizzle out, meaning they pump out, and then that's the rat. They get a bearish div, and that's it. But it does look like the daily has one more massive run out, and it does coincide with the whole, goop here of liquidity And I call it a goop because it's all down there and it's all goopy goop. But we could go all down into that liquidity there for Bitcoin. So it does look like the DXY wants to pump. It looks like we may be a pump, and then maybe we'll be retracing when I come back next week. But the DXY looks strong right now on the macro for sure. Let's look at Bitcoin dominance. You would expect that to be actually possibly pumping. And it is, because people are going to jump out of altcoins for Bitcoin whenever you see some bearishness. And so you're seeing that right now. But it's on par for the continuation. See this almost shoulder, head, right shoulder, cup and handle. And so far, exactly what I thought was going to happen did. We got back above it. We're going to take a look at the tether dominance now. If these pump together, no go, right? But if we start to get a pump of Bitcoin dominance and a fallback on tether dominance, that means that people are getting healthy back into altcoins again, and the market's starting to kind of really gain itself. So this looks good to me. See how Bitcoin dominance really wants to pump, but tether dominance really still wants to let go. So there's a sign here that even though we might get some type of pullback in the long run, overall, that tether is not the desired coin people want to be into. So this says that the bull run's still on too as well. You know, again, it's double bottomed, but it's a bear flag. Now, if we get back above 48, 4.8, then I would start to be, and if, I'd be worried. And if we get above the 200, the daily, the 200 MA on the daily here, the 200 daily moving average, that's not going to be a good sign as well. But so far, I see this bear flag continuing. Maybe it fumbles around up and down a little bit, but it still tells me that the bulls are in control. U.S. tether's still in a bear flag. No stress. No stress. We take a look at gold, because gold's been strong, and I really, just quick update for gold. I don't think I need much. It's in a flag. Last week when I showed it to you, I said gold was going to continue to pump. Look at it break out there. It's doing exactly as I suggested. And now I see gold headed probably further to $3,400. And that could get there somewhere by April or May too. So gold on a tear. I like what I'm seeing for gold. And that would be a good sign if gold pumps and the dollar eventually pulls back. Trump does want a weaker dollar. He likes the dollar, but he doesn't want it too strong, right? Because he doesn't want things to be, too expensive. He wants the dollar to be weaker so people can pay less. So that's and also a weak dollar, though, also raises prices. And it goes back and forth. But it definitely would look better on the surface. They definitely want a weaker dollar. That would be better for us in the long run. Right now, Trump is strengthening the dollar because of the ideas of tariffs in the U.S., and there's going to be a first strengthening and then a pullback from that area. Let's take a look at the S&P futures. Here we are with the S&P now. Now, the S&P, last time I left you, I wanted to see that bounce and get tight. It did follow the thread. We said we're not sure. It could go either way. Now, I still expect a bounce here, though. Tightness, and over time, I expect the S&P to continue to rip. The money printer will be turned on. It's only a matter of time. Do you bounce off the 200 MA on the daily too? And the S&P looks a lot like Bitcoin with the pullback. Its head and shoulder is a little messy, but still a bit of a head and shoulder there. Could we dump with Bitcoin? There's a chance. And so right now, it does look somewhat bearish. The daily pointing down. Look at your 3-day chart. 3-day entering the dotted line, which has been known for a pullback. So it does look like the S&P may be in for a little more of a pullback here. All right. But in the long run, I see it making a higher low than this and eventually getting a bounce further to the upside. Again, who knows? We'll keep checking it. But the way they're printing money, it just doesn't make sense that the S&P won't get one at least final big move here before our monumental crash, maybe coming in mid-May of 2025. But it does say there's going to be some type of crash coming at one point. But this could be the pre-crash before a bigger crash. So I wouldn't get too stressed out on the S&P. I wouldn't be surprised if it bounces off a Fibonacci level here. It's on the 618. It's very close to a reversal of some type. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ looks a little sketchier, to be honest, because it's losing this trend line. Let's take a look. So the NASDAQ was in a rising wedge, and it's now losing that rising wedge, which is bearish, period, right? I mean, rising wedges usually break down where they began. So you'd look for the NASDAQ to drop somewhere to 19.7, maybe even lower, possibly to 18.3. So, again, when I look at the bigger picture and I look at Bitcoin and the NASDAQ and everything, it does look like there's just going to be a bigger pullback on all world markets, man. Unless this is just its last little, I'll be honest, usually my analysis, I can be like spot on. Right now, we're in a sketchy spot. Like, we lose this level, we are going to drop down to 19.8. You know, so even this analysis alone should put you unawares. Usually I'm all sitting there, now I'm like, man, yeah, you could pay attention here. Like I could see someone taking some money off their stocks, and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. If it levels off and gets tight, you probably have some similar prices. If it takes a dump, you can get back in the market at such good levels. So, I mean, you need the Hail Mary bounce here, really, for the NASDAQ. If you don't get a bounce, you're dropping further down to 19.8, and then rising wedges usually break down where they began. So I would say 18.8. So I'll be honest, I was a little more optimistic till I looked at the NASDAQ. The fact that the NASDAQ lost this rising wedge, bottom trend line, yes, there's previous support as resistance, so there's some support right there at 27.781, but it's sketchy right now for sure. For sure. We need a bounce and go sideways. Next week, I'm really not sure where we're going to be. I'd have to say there's a chance that either could happen. And I'm almost leaning a little more bearish than bullish because we got a head and shoulder, we're below. So I wouldn't be surprised if we are testing this daily 200 MA on the NASDAQ in the next week or two. So I'm leaning a little more bearish than bullish there on the NASDAQ. I have to say, that's just what the cards are telling me. Wow, the Dow crashing, man. That's not good. That's nasty. Look at it. I mean, that's world economic stuff. I mean, that's a shoulder, head and right shoulder for the Dow. That could be a nasty dump. The Dow dumps down there. I mean, everything's going down. That's a head and shoulder on the Dow, and the Dow taking a beat down right now. Look at the daily right now. So it looks like we're in for a stock market crash, my friends. I didn't even take a look. I usually look at the Dow. I mean, that looks nasty. So just be careful. I mean, Bitcoin looks like it's just going to be following suit. See if I'm wrong, if there's any hope here for a bounce. No, I mean, we lost the 200 in the 4-hour time frame. I mean, Bitcoin did that a while back, but the Dow is now kind of rushing behind. Basically, you're attempting to... So they're both in these head and shoulder patterns. They both don't look good. Dow and Bitcoin look very similar. And last one I want to look at is Sol BTC. Seems to be kind of losing its edge against Bitcoin, but it's still in a bit of a flag, see? If you lose this trend line, that means the bull run's kind of over. If we get something like this to happen, that means the bull run's pretty much a wrap. We need Sol to stay inside this contention. And that means, we go up and down, some pullbacks, but we're still ready for a fight there. Back to the upside for Sol BTC and that cup and handle. You do not want it to lose 17944 Satoshi. That's my macro analysis for the entire world markets, Bitcoin, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, gold, right? DXY, the dominances and total market caps and crypto and more. I hope you liked it. I hope you had a good time. I'll be back next week to break this down again. Be careful. It doesn't look amazing. It definitely looks like some type of liquidity grab in world markets. I'd take an easy approach to the market for the next week or two, see how we settle off into the inauguration, and see what happens. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe so you can find out when I post my next video. I go live every single day, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday nights at 8 p.m. And I also do an update on the weekends, somewhere between 8 and 10 p.m. I love you all. I appreciate it. And I'll see you on the next Crypto Lifer video. Crypto is life.